Thank you, Father Whitlock, any honored guests, and my dear brothers. My priest hero is Father Joseph Corolla, S.J. I first encountered Father Joseph Corolla not in the semester in Rome, but actually in August 2014, before I'd even stepped in this building as a seminarian for the first time. It was at the All-Iowa Convocation for Seminarians, which every summer, all the seminarians from across the state of Iowa gather in one of the dioceses for talks held by one of the speakers, and that year it just so happened to be that the speaker was Father Joseph Corolla. Now, a key point is I encountered him, I did not meet him. I was still extremely shy at this point, so introductions were non-existent. Skipping forward about 8 months, in my new man year eval, Father Becker pointed out that I had a great love for the church, and I agreed. And he said that and he pointed out that there is a priest in Rome that helped out with the Rome program named Father Corolla that I'd really enjoy getting to know because he had a great, profound love for the church and even the liturgy. So Father Becker essentially predicted, prophesized, however you want to put it, my priest hero would be Father Corolla. New men year evals are important. That's also the moral of the story. So there are 3 reasons why Father Corolla is my priest hero. The first is that he's a churchman. What does this mean? It does not mean that he is someone who aspires to be a bishop, who aspires to climb the ladder of the hierarchy, but rather he is someone who, like Christ, gives his whole life over to the church out of love of her. You know, we hear in Ephesians chapter 5 about how the husband is supposed to model Christ's love for the church. Father Corolla lives that out, not as a husband to a wife, but rather as Christ to his church. It's very important for Father Corolla to really love the church with his whole heart and to do whatever is asked of him. And being a Jesuit, this comes a little bit easier since he's under the vow of obedience. But he still loves the church with his utmost. And he loves the church not only in the church's beauty, not only in her liturgy, but also in what some might call the ugliness of the church, what turns some people away. He loves the hard truths of the church. He loves the church even though she at times can be imperfect. She at times can stumble, but she never falters, as we hear in Matthew. The gates of hell never prevail against her. And Father Corolla really does live this out. The second reason that Father Corolla is my priest hero is his love and reverence in celebrating the sacred liturgy. Surprise, surprise, as the worship chair. Father Corolla celebrates the Mass like many priests do, but in a very profound way in which what he does at the altar is what happens, and he acts like what is happening is actually happening. The prayers of institution are real for him. The Mass is taking place at Calvary every single time he celebrates it. I had the opportunity of going to Mass with him every single week with my brothers in Rome, and I will say he is the only Jesuit in Rome who celebrates Mass in the round, yet ad orientem. And finally, Father Corolla loves Christ and is conformed to Christ crucified. Some of you may be familiar with his books, which there are currently 2 volumes. The 3rd volume is shortly on the way, according to his Facebook page, called Conformed to Christ Crucified, in which he offers reflections, homilies he's given for first masses, retreats, etc. about the priesthood. If you look to Volume 2, actually the talks he gave back in August to the Des Moines guys is actually in Volume 2. So if you're interested, Volume 2, Conformed to Christ Crucified. But even more profoundly, the reflections and their homilies and everything that Father Corolla talks about in terms of the priesthood comes from his prayer life. He's a man of deep prayer. He prays often. And it comes from his reflection in prayer, but most of all, it comes from his living out the title of his books. He lives out and is conformed to Christ crucified. He is someone who knows what suffering is and embraces it. He is someone who, like I said, loves the church and embraces it, even in its ugliness. He is truly conformed to Christ crucified. And above all the other reasons I said, this is why he's my priest hero, because he serves as a great role model of what the priesthood is supposed to be. The priest is supposed to be conformed to Christ crucified. That's what happens at the Mass. That's what happens every single time you see a priest. They are conformed to Christ crucified sacramentally, and they're called to be servants, not to be served. So someday I hope to be like Father Krola. Someday I hope to be ordained priest, an alter Christus, but I hope to be a churchman to some degree like Father Krola. I hope to celebrate the Mass with great reverence and devotion as he does. But above all, I pray that no matter what my vocation is, no matter where the Lord takes me in my life, that I will be conformed to Christ crucified as Father Krola is conformed to Christ crucified. Praise be Jesus Christ.
Now.